12 advanced missiles, $2 million in tech, and a $1 billion target. One side outspent the other by 500 to 1, yet lost the fight before sunrise. The secret wasn't power, it was precision. This is how Ukraine's network of plywood drones, surf-skimming boats, and one American chip turned a fortified harbor into a battlefield laboratory for the future of war. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Every radar in Novaros Harbor was live, every gun primed, and yet none saw what approached from the horizon. The harbor burned with confidence that night, its steel walls and digital eyes scanning every corner of the sea. At its center, a North Korean stealth frigate sat like a crown jewel, locked behind a perimeter of missile batteries and rapid-fire cannons. The Panzer S-1 launchers stood ready along the breakwater, each with twin barrels angled toward the waves. Dozens of AK-630 autocannons lined the decks and piers, their rotating barrels capable of firing 1,000 rounds per minute. High above, Orion drones circled lazily under the clouds, their sensors locked on distant fishing boats and phantom blips. They were part of a defense grid worth over $1 billion, a floating fortress designed to wipe out fighter jets before they could even be seen. That sense of invulnerability ran deep through every crewman in the harbor. The stealth frigate's black hull disappeared against the night water, whisper quiet and shielded by jamming arrays. Within its armored belly sat 8 vertical launch tubes for Pukong ballistic missiles, each capable of reaching 800 miles inland. The ship was not just a war machine, it was a statement of dominance. On paper, nothing could slip past its defenses without being vaporized, but the threat that moved toward it that morning was built on a different kind of logic. It cost less, spoke less, and thought for itself. From 70 miles out, the Ukrainian strike package began its crawl toward the harbor. 6 scythe drones skimmed above the surface at barely 30 feet, their low profiles vanishing into sea clutter. Behind them, 3 Mura 55 boats crept forward through the black water, engines throttled down to a whisper. One was armed only with a radio beacon and false transponder codes. Another carried explosives packed tight against the hull. The third was a decoy, programmed to drift in a looping pattern to draw fire. Together, their combined value barely topped $2 million, an entire attack force cheaper than the frigate's radar array alone. At exactly 4:30 a.m., the ghosts on the water aligned by satellite. Tiny antennas flickered online for seconds, confirming positions before switching back into silence. Above them, the Orion drones kept circling, blind to what was unfolding below. Operators inside the Panzer control bunker stared at green screens, seeing only the echo of their own chaff clouds. Nothing on their displays broke pattern, and so the crew relaxed their watch. They couldn't know that the approaching drones needed no human signal to guide them. Inside each one, a compact AI core handled every decision, adjusting course with inertial sensors and infrared eyes that mapped heat and motion rather than radar returns. Precision through autonomy, machines plotting their attack without chatter, without delay. Then came the first flickers on the defenders' scopes. Ghost signals hopped across the radar grid, reflections bouncing off waves and decoy aluminum clouds. The system locked on to what it thought were multiple fast-moving intruders. 12 missiles armed automatically, ignition codes confirmed. In under 10 seconds, they leapt into the air, tracing orange scars across the sky. 10 overshot their targets and vanished into the sea. One slammed into the empty decoy boat, scattering shrapnel across the surface. Another clipped a passing scythe drone before it could split formation. In the control room, confusion replaced the early calm. Out near the piers, the men working the autocannons shouted for firing orders, staring into fog where nothing visible moved. The fortress had just failed its first test. As the echoes faded over the harbor walls, the defenders gripped their triggers and waited for the second wave, one that would not look or move like anything they'd seen before. The harbor's defense grid fired blindly into the fog, but the attack didn't stop. It adapted. At 4:45 a.m., operators inside the North Korean control bunker triggered the Kasuka-4 electronic warfare system. Mounted on a Russian-built truck parked near the eastern pier, it unleashed a high-frequency pulse intended to fry every active data link in the area. The signal washed across the bay like invisible fire, knocking out Wi-Fi bands, seizing video transmitters, and cutting command uplinks. Within moments, every Ukrainian feed went dark. The screens aboard forward controllers lit up with error codes. No telemetry, no visuals. By every conventional standard, the strike was finished, but it wasn't. Inside each AQ-400 scythe drone, a separate logic core took over. No operator needed to send commands. The switch was hardwired for this exact situation. Inertial sensors picked up where GPS had failed, and small heat cameras read the temperature difference between the sea and the cold metal of the docks. Without radio guidance, the swarm recalculated routes on its own, following a digital map stored in each unit before launch, while human pilots on the other end scrambled to reconnect, the machines were already adapting, replotting their trajectories with quiet efficiency. One scythe registered the sudden burst from the Kasuka truck itself. The AI identified the pulse origin, dropped from 90 feet to 30, and accelerated in a straight dive toward that source. The defenders didn't notice until it was too late. The drone struck the truck head-on, its shaped charge firing downward through the chassis. The explosion threw a 30-foot pillar of flame into the air and lit up the pier like a magnesium torch. The blast tore through the truck's fuel cell and vaporized its pulse emitters. For the first time since the hack began, the interference stopped. Radio silence broke apart, and in the upper atmosphere, a Bayraktar TB2 drone relinked through Starlink's broadband band. At 27,000 feet, it became the eyes and ears the swarm had lost, but instead of feeding data to ground controllers, the TB2 sent it directly into an automated coordination loop. Drones talking to drones, updating one another's paths through machine learning code originally built for agricultural mapping. Down at sea level, the two remaining Mura 55 surface vessels were closing in. A decoy boat drifted left, still transmitting the false radar signature of a fast-moving gunship. The defenders took the bait. Two AK-630 autocannons opened up, each spitting 90 rounds a second into the water. The sea boiled with ricochets as the real attack boat slid under the arcs of fire, hugging the pier shadows. One Mura 55 drew closer, its sensors guiding it through the narrow dock channel at just 7 knots. Every few seconds, its onboard processor recalculated wave height, rudder angle, and reflection rate, steering miniature corrections invisible to the eye. By 5 a.m., 4 surviving scythes re-entered the harbor. Tracer lines swept over them, but the drones moved unpredictably, rolling side to side, deploying strips of thin aluminum chaff that scattered radar pings into chaos. The AK-630 crews tried to reacquire lock, but their barrels overheated after 3 minutes of firing. Smoke filled the deck, and motors jammed from thermal stress. One drone went down, shredded midair. The others pressed forward, diving just above the rooftops toward the frigate's command mast. At 5:30 a.m., the last armed Mura 55 reached its mark. It drifted beneath the frigate's belly and detonated directly under the vertical missile tubes. The shaped charge pierced into the fuel compartment, igniting a chain of micro-explosions that raced along the launch system. Fire engulfed the deck, sensors melted, and radar antennas sagged like wet paper. The ship stayed afloat, but no longer responded to any order. Its missiles were dead, its eyes blind, and its weapons overheated beyond use. The so-called super frigate had become a silent shell, and what happened next would expose what that silence truly cost in the new age of autonomous war. A $2 million swarm dismantled a $2 billion flagship without a single pilot crossing enemy lines. Machines built from plywood, circuit boards, and borrowed code outperformed the most advanced naval defenses on record. A $1 billion stronghold had been neutralized in under 20 minutes with fewer than $2 million of gear. Cost no longer defines dominance, coordination, and autonomy do. This battle wasn't fought through wealth or manpower, but through connection and precise timing. Yet in proving that, it also exposed the danger ahead. Technology now evolves faster than diplomacy, and the next great escalation may begin with no humans at the controls.